Take us away, Mike.
How you doing, everyone? It's another C-List Saturdays with my best friend Villainous Wed, and we got a couple other C-List villains here tonight. Luke Weeks and Luther.
What's up?
And we're gonna have a great show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We got a gentleman named Stallone K that has a graphic novel called Jade. That we're going to bring to you tonight. Welcome, Stallone.
How's it going?
What up, John Spartan?
Love it, man. How's it going, man? Good to be here.
We're happy to have you here, Rambo. So let us know a little bit about what your Jade is all about.
Okay, so and it's funny because this actually goes back about 11 years ago. I came up with this idea that I wanted to create a character for, and it was actually this really whole big thing, like it was massive with a lot of characters. About 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I need to start small. So I picked one of my favorite characters, which was Jade. Jade is a former assassin turned mercenary who is basically trying to escape her past, and we're introduced to her within a story where she is basically finding more about herself, where she's from, and having to confront her past, because a lot of times when we try to run away from something, that something usually reappears in ways that we don't expect.
Yep.
I see. Very interesting. Very interesting. So when you had those characters, those numbers of characters that you had, what put Jade on top? What put Jade in the forefront of the other characters that you had in your mind?
So one of the things that it was, first of all, she's a baddie, man. She kicks a lot of butt, and what really kind of connected me to her was because she was different in a lot of ways. We have this Black female character who is essentially Japanese. She was raised in a Japanese culture. She, that's a very large part of her upbringing. And I felt like that was such a story to explore there, because the main question people see that it's like, wait, why? Or how does that work? And what is it that makes this person so strong or so unique compared to other characters out there? And I kind of fell in love, man. I tell people that she's my Spider-Man. She's my flagship character.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So my question is, your background, how do you come up with Jade's background, her Japanese, ethnicity, that where did you go to get this information?
I love the way that Mike puts the words together. Authenticity, but that's great.
You know what's really interesting about that is being a nerd. Okay, so I came up in the 90s, man, and during this time, there was a lot of comic book stuff. This is post Batman, 89. So this is like Batman animated series. Dragon Ball Z was like kind of in its zenith in its heyday. So both Eastern and Western IPs were just common for us. And growing up as a kid, you didn't understand that Sailor Moon was Japanese and Spider-Man was, you just know that you liked it.
Yep.
And
Cartoon.
yeah, exactly. So growing up with that, I kind of identified with this really rich tapestry of characters. So seeing strong female characters, kind of getting in touch with the Japanese animation style. And also what really intrigued me from the Western style was the storytelling, because Batman animated series had second to none storytelling. X-Men animated series, and, this was supposed to be a children's cartoon, but it really touched on a lot of really deep themes. And I think that those of us who are kids that got a chance to see that, I think we were given a chance to really explore something that didn't talk down to kids. And when you see things like that, you're like, hey man, I can do that. So being an imaginative kid, we would always imagine ourselves to be these characters and things like that. And a kid's imagination can run wild. And I think that where this comes from for me is just me allowing myself to tap into that childlike imagination and be like, hey man, let's tell some crazy stories. Nothing's off limits.
That's Stallone. As an older millennial, like us here and the older Gen X,
Yep.
Did you watch Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball when it's being broadcasted, or did you watch it while it was on pirate?
So a lot of time, I think it had already been kind of syndicated. I don't think it was like live or like as it was being produced. I think it was kind of after the fact. So I think a lot of the time, because I remember hearing from friends of mine, it was like, oh man, the in Japan they're XYZ seasons ahead. So we would catch it. Whether I had VHS tapes, so I would go. I would beg my mom, like, "Hey, man, let me go get the." So I was a little bit further ahead than what was on TV, but I would go to Walmart, Target, anywhere I could to get my hands on the tapes because I was so excited to see the next. I think they put like 2 or 3 episodes per tape or something like that.
Yeah. They can only fit about an hour and a half per tape.
Yeah. So that's how I watched it mostly.
Who's your character on DBZ? Who's your?
Oh, it was Vegeta. It was always Vegeta, man. I loved Vegeta, man. It's something about that angry attitude it's just such a, because everybody wants to talk about, like, when you talk about the DBZ tropes, the screaming, a lot of that is centered in Vegeta. Like when it's just that really angry, angsty, in your face, fast, violent, that was so much of that was Vegeta, and that's why I fell in love. I mean, I like Goku, don't get me wrong, but Vegeta was my guy, like, period.
Now, did you take some of Vegeta's characteristics and place it in Jade?
Yes, I would say so. One of the things that I put in here was about volatile anger. And the way that I tied this into the character is, as she gets angry, as she loses control, she overheats. The caveat to her power is that she has a limited run in which she can use her abilities. And then as she overheats, she has to cool off. So, she's extremely capable, extremely strong, but she's on a severe time limit. And if she goes too far, then that's it for her. And I wanted to create that caveat because I don't like overpowered characters. I mean, I enjoy them, but I feel like from a writing standpoint, it gets really lazy. Like, you can create a situation where it's like, oh, my character can do anything, or pull something out your butt, some kind of transformation or something, and then it's like, I fixed that. And I was like, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to challenge myself as a writer to say, okay, what if I put these limitations in place and said, how do you deal with this?
Yeah, just like One Punch Man and even Goku is sort of like, if it becomes too overpowered, then you kind of just have to recycle the story over, even though he's reached a different power level. Yeah, now you have to bring in other entities from the same power level. That way, at least it could be a fight.
And then it's like infinite escalation. So it's like your character gets stronger, the next enemy gets stronger, and then it's like, if you have to suspend disbelief, because if you go off of what they're doing, you're like, these characters are infinitely powerful at this point. Like, they can pretty much do anything. Like, if Super Saiyan was like, planetary level, how many levels past that are we now? So, like, how strong would they be actually? If we took that into account. So, from a storytelling, you kind of have to cook the books a little bit. It's like, we understand that they're powerful, but we can't display that, because then, what would our stories be?
Well, it's like bringing in the Kryptonians to Earth. Like, if you bring every one of them to our planet, then they're infinitely all strong. So there's no way for anybody to fight them except each other. Same thing with the Saiyans. You bring them from planet Vegeta, bring them to Earth.
Yeah. Same with the Viltrumites.
Yeah.
The Viltrumite, yes.
Luke, jump in when you can. Get some questions in. Luther too, man. I know you guys are boys, but Luther's got some questions too, man.
Talk to me, man.
Yeah. Go ahead, Luther.
If there's another anime that you would compare Jade to, what would it be?
Okay, so one, and I think it could come across the wrong way to say Cowboy Bebop, because it's not about space, but when you take a linear storytelling style, because I'm a very big fan of linear storytelling, I'm a very big fan of defined start, defined finish, and really just having a cohesive story and not something that just is intended to go on forever and in every direction.
Yeah.
So I think from having that, just that singular, because one of the things about Cowboy Bebop was, we didn't know much about Spike. We knew we liked him. We knew he was cool. But as the story goes on, we learn more about his history and why was he doing what he was doing? Like, why was he, a bounty hunter and all of these things? And I think that in that episodic style of storytelling was something that I was heavily inspired by. So I think that there is a touch of that in there with Jade.
Right. Yeah.
So did you start the story with the artwork first, or was it the story, the written word first? How did you start?
Okay, so I always start written first. So I wrote a 19-page story, single spaced, but I wrote it out first because I just wanted to know where it was going before I put pen to pad to draw anything. So I wanted to have an idea of story, because one of the things I realized is that when you're writing, there's no limit. When I'm drawing, there's a limit because I can't draw any and everything all the time. But when I'm writing, it allows my imagination to just go anywhere. And then when I get back to the point where I have to create the art, that's when I have to kind of bring it down to earth a little bit and say, I can do that. I can't really do that. But, I always start with the written word.
Luke, anything?
Would you compare her more to a Ronin, a samurai, or a shogun?
Nice.
Okay, Ronin for sure. Because in the story, we learned that her adoptive father was killed by her best friend. So, this person that she looked up to, that raised her, that was the head of her assassins group, was killed. She was betrayed by this, but her choice was to leave. Her choice was to run away from this situation and to become a mercenary. So in a lot of ways, she is definitely a warrior without a master. And, I've said it many times, she's very childlike in a way of experiencing so many things for the first time. So we see this person who is incredibly capable, but also super naive about so much of the world because she hasn't had to know these things up until now.
So a good story comes about the background. So Spider-Man has New York as the background. Where does Jade have?
Okay, so the story takes place in a place that's called Horizon Point. And I took inspiration for Horizon Point because I wanted to kind of take an amalgamation of cities. So I wanted it to be very much like a southern city, but I wanted it to have the scale of like a Chicago or a New York. So it's like, what if we took a city the size of like Chicago or New York and put it somewhere between North Carolina and Virginia? So a lot of southern sensibilities, but in a large scale, because I just like the idea of urban setting, urban decay, because I was like, there's a lot that you can put into a story in a setting like that.
Now, have you also collaborated with other creators, such as Sebastian Jones, creator of Niobe?
Okay, so I haven't yet, but one of the things that I wish to do through my company, which is called Illustrated Odyssey Collective, is I want to create a space where people of color, people who are traditionally marginalized in the comic and manga space can tell stories. So I have ideas and things like that I've decided, things I've written that I said I'm not going to draw because I want to help publish people who are very talented, because there's so many talented people. There's so many great stories. And the only reason why we haven't heard them yet is because of the barrier to entry into being published. And if I can take that away and say, hey, you don't have to pay anything, you don't have to do anything, we're going to help you get published. And the only thing we're going to do is once it's published, the work we do together, we'll take a percentage off top. You own the IP. but we make a little money together and we help you get out there and introduce, because I think that now is a great time. People are interested in great stories. We've seen this Radiant Black. We've seen all these new, like relatively new things that are coming out that is like, yo, this is really good. And people are eating it up. So they want new stories. Oh, Radiant Black is fantastic. So, that's
first few chapters throws a curveball and you're just like didn't expect it, so it's always surprising.
And didn't Run DMC also have a book out too?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
okay.
There's definitely some great books out there by some Black creators, and definitely go out there and check it out. And it being Juneteenth week.
Yes. Happy Juneteenth.
Yep.
Now, is there a little bit of a element of Juneteenth in Jade, as far as like getting to that fight where making sure that injustice is taken care of?
Okay, so the way that I decided to handle race in this was a little more indirect than direct. So I think we discuss it and we handle that more in her past, because we find out that she was ostracized. We find out that, growing up, even in her Assassin's Guild, that she was treated differently for two reasons. One, because of the color of skin. She was a female, but she was heavily favored by the head of the guild, who was her adoptive father. And, that does create a bit of strife. But her race is not something that she's going to learn to identify with that. But up until this point, like, she hasn't really, her identity is more of a blank slate. She sees herself as what she does more than who she is, because she doesn't really know who she is yet. So understanding, what does it mean to be a Black woman? What does it mean to be a woman in America? Like, learning these things, because she's never had to deal with that. She's never had to deal with things that ordinary people have to, and coming across these things for the first time, it creates these scenarios where she asks questions like, oh, wait, what? People are treated differently because, of their gender or because of the color of their skin. Wait, why is that? So learning these things, like I said before, she's very, very naive and, very, gullible, very childlike in a lot of ways.
I haven't even read the book yet because we haven't ordered it. But it just seems like,
right.
Like there's a little bit of ninja assassin element to it, where it comes down like she's a child being taught by a certain father figure,
right?
But in order to be in this house, you have to train to kill. And
right.
That's what I'm getting from your explanation of what Jade is going through in the story, and it looks like it's going to evolve even more as you go along the issues. Correct?
Right. So in the first book, what I wanted to do was set the story. I wanted to create the environment and kind of give, kind of a slow burn. The second book is much longer. It is a lot more fast paced. There's a lot more action in it. So, when you go through that little bit of a slow lull in the beginning, the second book is definitely a payoff for that. And as we go into the third book, there's going to be a lot of payoff to the story while still having excellent action. And every time we publish, every time I come out, I want to push the boundaries and go further, go bigger, really give the reader something to be excited about.
I mean, I think you could probably just slow play a little bit more, because I know world building takes a little bit of time to establish.
For sure.
Getting into the actual meat and potatoes of your story, but definitely looking forward to read it.
We being villains on the C-list villains, a good story is only as good as the villain is. So Jade has to have her villain. Who is Jade's number one villain?
Okay, so her number one villain is a character by the name of Akoroshi. Akoroshi is her childhood best friend. He is the person that trained beside her, but in the story, we tease him, but she hasn't yet encountered him, except in like various cutaways and things like that, where we see his ominous presence. So the very first person that we are introduced to, I'll call him the second tier villain, is Oishi, which is the man who trained her to fight. So he was kind of like, he wasn't a father figure, but he was similar to it. So he trained both Jade and Akoroshi to fight, and then they learned from him. And he's the first villain that she comes in contact with. Kind of like, think of it like a sub boss fight on the way to the boss fight. Yeah. Who is Akoroshi?
Do any of your villains, like their names, have any meaning?
Okay, so Akoroshi is like an amalgamation. So I thought about like Akuma, which is like a devil or a demon. And I just was taking all these different, because I was thinking about the term like angel or kuroi, or so I was just taking different things, and I was like, hey, how can I shuffle this around to make it sound like something cool? So then I was like, Akoroshi. I was like, oh, that sounds good. That sounds like something kind of cool. So that was the meaning behind that.
Now, as this is a manga, is it set up as a manga book where you're reading right to left?
Okay, so it is not this version. This one reads more like a trade paperback. So there will be Jade manga, and after this trilogy, we are going to do a manga series, and the manga is going to differ from the trade paperback, because we're going to move the setting of the story back to Japan. We're going to use the black and white interior, and we're going to tell exciting stories, but we're going to do it in a more traditional manga style. So, we've seen something that mirrors something closer to a comic or to a graphic novel. And then the next set of series that we see from her will be much closer to traditional manga.
Very nice, very nice. And it being she has a villain who was a friend,
right?
It kind of parallels what happens in like G.I. Joe with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. A little bit of elements from there as well.
Yeah, so I definitely grew up on G.I. Joe, but there is something there. I wanted to have a character that was driven by grief, I wanted to touch on tones of betrayal. Like, what do you do when you feel betrayed by the person that you cared for the most? And then, I'm not going to spoil anything, but when we find out the truth behind everything, we're going to get into some existential angst, existential level things where it was like, oh, wow, this character has to rethink everything that they thought was true and figure out where do they go from there.
So it seems like she was isolated within that school, learning to fight.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's where naivety comes in.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, how old is Jade in this story currently?
Okay, so I don't specifically say, and I won't ever give an exact age, but I will give you an age range, and I would say that she's between 24 and 29 years old. And I keep it a range, because then if I give an exact age, then I have to really stick with that, because my storytelling is real time. That means that the passage of time in the universe I've created mirrors the real world. So if if I go with an exact age, then it's like I worry about aging my character too fast. Yeah. So range-ish.
Yeah, because Bart Simpson hasn't aged for the last 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the kid has been a kid forever, right?
You mentioned Jade has a cooldown. So what is Jade's superpower that she needs to cool down from?
Okay, so I decided to give her the most uninteresting set of powers in the world. So she has enhanced speed, strength, Durability. There's absolutely nothing special about her powers. I didn't want it to be about that. Like, I wanted it to be about how she uses it. I really wanted it to be character driven. Like, we know that she's a capable character, but I didn't want it to be so fantastical that it's like we worry so much about what she can do. We know that she can do a lot, but I didn't want that to overshadow the character driven elements. Like, she's really capable. She can do a lot of things if she pushes it. Now, the fact that she does overheat is something that if she's smart, she can use to her advantage. So there's a lot of imagery that I use in the books about fire and flames and things like that. So she can ignite her sword on fire. She can ignite her fist on fire and things like that. It's not a superpower per se. It's just she can move fast enough that the friction can create heat and flames. So it's not like a firepower per se, but it is something that she knows how to use.
But eventually, she will gain more superpowers as the story goes along. It like how Goku would just, as a kid, will only do certain things up until a point where you start getting more training from Master Roshi.
Yeah. So what's going to happen without giving anything away that we.
This is all just coming at
Remember,
us.
we're not heroes.
Yeah,
we're villains.
We're not trying to figure your book. We're
We're definitely. I got big plans for her, so we're gonna take her to a place that's super awesome because there's a anime trope that I love so much with heroes, without giving anything away, like what happens when the hero's back is against the wall, like, what happens, they level up a bit, and how she does that and what form that takes is, I'm excited to share like what that looks like, and I mix that in with a comic trope because in comics, when characters level up, they like to give them names and things like that. So, we got Rune King Thor, or, we have World Breaker Hulk. So I was like, I want to kind of play with that idea. So nothing else though. I'm not going to touch on that too much more.
So
you don't want to be like
being able to ignite like the sword. Can she ignite any other weapon?
Yes, like kunai or basically anything. Like there's a scene where she's fighting against a guy who's using a stop sign as a weapon. So anything that she can put her hands on, she can, and it's just simply from being able to move fast enough that she can ignite things on flame. And because she's a little undersized, I made it to where she uses her body in very interesting ways, because if she fights a bigger person, it's like just a punch to the gut. I don't care how strong you are. If you don't weigh much, how do you put more weight into it? So she tends to use her body as a battering ram or a projectile quite often, and it's just an interesting way to have her combat people who are a little bit more girthy than she may be.
I've been saying that same statement about 1 million times in my lifetime. Everyone says like, Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee. Well, I always said that, Chuck always said that he never would fight Bruce, but in real life, he would be able to beat Bruce because, he weighs 240 pounds and Bruce Lee weighs $120 wet. So what you just said follows the kind of fighting style that I enjoy. The bigger guy is going to be the bigger guy, and the smaller guy is going to be the smaller guy. And no matter what you're going to do, that's the defining thing. Like we use Goku. Goku fights these giant men, but he had to become Super Saiyan 5 to do it. So,
right. I like, again, I like limitations. I like having to deal with the how physics works. Like one of the things that I spent so much time on was trying to figure out, because she's fast, so she has low level super speed, and I hate with a capital HATE the way that most speedsters are, the way they display their powers. Because if you know anything about physics, just running regular but doing it really fast is not how that would work at all. Like the way that you would move through space, the way that your running stride, everything else, it changes. So what does that look like? And I spent so much time going back and forth trying to figure out, what does super speed actually look like? What would that look like in the real world? Like if you could run like 200 miles an hour. How would that look? You know, that's the question. Like, really ask yourself the question.
Flash movie.
No. Exactly. It's like
definitely a different way of running.
Yeah.
And it makes more sense with the way how physics work, is you're not going to be tight with the information when you're running. You're flailing around because your body's putting out a lot of heat.
Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the things I did was I looked at the way a cheetah runs. If you watch a cheetah, right, run about 70 miles an hour, most of the time it spins in the air. Like, it does not spend a lot of time with its feet in contact in the ground.
Yeah.
And if you think, exactly. So if a person could run super fast, it wouldn't just be like your legs just going like 1,000,000 miles an hour and you're just running the way you normally would do a sprint. Like, the way you move through the air would be different, and it would almost be like gliding more than just like really fast, rapid movement of your feet. And it's just like sped up. It looks silly to me. I've always thought that looked silly.
How can you animate that or I guess, depict that on comic book form of like depicting speed versus just being stationary? How do you make someone look fast, especially on manga?
Well, there are a couple of ways. Like, when I was studying manga, what I realized is one of the cool things that they do is they make everything else in a panel move. So you have like all of these blur, or you have all of these motion lines while you have this kind of stagnant rush pose. And the idea is that, you're locked into the character that's moving while everything else is zipping by in a blur. So that's one way. And another way is to, kind of have this exaggerated blur. So where if the background is stationary, then we have the character, kind of move in a streak across the page. Like, you have to have some level of comparison. There has to be something that we can compare it to within the background to get a sense of speed and motion, especially in a stationary panel. But you get to experiment and have fun with that, though, and try different things.
Not only are you the writer of the book, you're also the illustrator.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, writing, drawing, doing the graphic design elements and everything else, every part of the book, which is good, but it's something that I hope in the future I'll be able to expand and bring other people in, because it took me 6 months to make the first book and 2 years to make the second one. And I feel like that, this kind of reaching a fever pitch. So I don't want to spend a year or 2 years making the book and then have to go through this rollout process and get people excited all over again. It's like, hey, you remember that thing I did? I did another one.
So
2029.
How hard was it for you to get published? I'm just curious. What did you do to get?
Okay, so Amazon has a program for independent authors, and artists that allows them to self-publish. It is not the most straightforward thing, and it's not something where you can just go and double click and you're good to go. Like, there is a application process. There is various things that you have to do before they allow you to publish on their platform. And once you are approved, they have this very strict set of guidelines that says, we have to go over this thing with a fine-tooth comb before we allow it to even be published on our platform. So, and that has been agonizing for me many times. We're like, on page 17, we notice at the bottom right corner, oh man. So you have to submit. I've had to submit each book many, many times before it was like, okay, you're good. You can go live. Oh, thank you.
Because
submission 18
plagiarism or something.
So it has to be exclusively sold on Amazon in order to sell your book?
No, actually, and that's the good thing about it is, no, they do not make you sign any exclusivity rights. But what I found is that platform is one of the most friendly as far as independent. There are others, but I fell in love with the quality. Like, the trade paperback quality was second to none. I know there's like Kablam and some other things, but I don't do I don't do like the weekly or the monthly comics, so the more paperback, like the paper small comics. I don't do that. I do trade paperback, and then in the manga will be the same thing. It'll just be smaller, and it'll read backwards from a traditional paperback.
It's better to have an arc per book, right? Or that way it's not episodic when it's like issue by issue.
Right. Right. I think
it's a lot easier to, I guess, control your story that way. And
it is, and it's also easier to consume. Like, one of the things that happens in comics is it can be kind of overwhelming because there's so many different versions. There's so many different titles. Things have to come out. Like I started collecting again, so I was buying the Absolute Batmans and things like that. So yeah, every month, it's time for another one to come out, and that's okay. And I think there is still some value to that, but I think that we have to realize that in 2025, people have shorter attention spans. So if you give them a story, right? If it's something that piques their interest, if you wait too long, or if something happens between, like, let's say you have something come out in May and then the rest of it is in June, you could lose them. But if you give them the something that is a little more lengthy, something that they can go back to and really get a lot out of, then they don't mind waiting a little longer because they know they don't have to come back each and every month to buy, book after book and try to put it together, because then it's so easy to get behind. It's like, oh man, I'm 4 books behind now. And that gets expensive now. Like, comics are not as cheap as they once were. So, if you can get a trade paperback for $20, $25, as opposed to paying $6 per issue every month, I think that there's also value in that for the consumer.
Well, definitely. It's just streaming services are the same thing. If they're going to release all the episodes to that one show, that way you can consume every one of those and then get excited for the next season after, because you're already pumped up like what you saw for that season. And
let me ask you a question against what we're talking about, because you brought up Absolute Batman, which I absolutely love. The Absolute series. What other ones besides Batman have you read or are you following right now?
So Absolute Batman, Absolute Flash. I've read only 2 issues of Absolute Wonder Woman, but I want to kind of go back and see what's going on there.
And don't forget Martian Manhunter. Absolute Martian Manhunter is absolutely fabulous.
Okay. Yes. So I've done one issue of that. Like I said, with it, so many started coming out. I was good. I had the Batman. I was doing every issue, and then I was like, "Here's Superman. Here's Wonder Woman," and then I got behind, man.
Yep.
I got so behind, so I got to take.
Branches out.
Then it branches out, and then it's like, so I have to make the decisions. Like, do I just stick with Batman for now and come back, or then it's like at some point
all over again.
Be like me, just blow your whole paycheck.
Yep.
Yeah, why not, right? Just like, hey, man, let me go get each and every episode. Issue. I'll read all of them right now.
Going back
but
to
I love it.
Luther did mention, like, what did Amazon do as far as like when they were evaluating your book before it gets published? Like, did they also they make creative changes in order for them to, like, okay, give you the okay to sell your book on their platform?
Okay, so they do have a set of guidelines about what they will and won't publish. So the only changes they will make is if something is outside of those guidelines. So if it's like overly sexually explicit, they'll be like, okay, none of that. They don't really have limitations on violence. Like, you can get pretty gory, so they don't really trip over violence or vulgar language.
Right there. Violence over
right, man. We gotta have plenty. Make it bloody, man.
Bloody
make it as bloody as possible, right? People love it,
Just have
like The Boys or something,
Oh, is that Luther?
Hey, I love it.
Just have a page that is just red.
Yes.
Like your background, just red.
Well, that's purple.
Hey,
violet.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a mix, right? A little bit of red, blue, purple,
With what you have in your book, what other what other pop culture media kind of inspired you to write Jade?
Okay, movies, man. Like I watched a lot of movies growing up. So everything from Blade Runner. I'm a huge nerd for Blade Runner, one of my absolute favorites. So anything that is cyberpunk or Afrofuturism, anything like that. I love those type of movies. So noir. So I love detective noir stories, and there are a lot. Like when you read book one, it is undoubtedly a neo noir story. Like Jade one is a neo noir story. Like it is, like it's not detective per se, but when you read it, the imagery, the language, the exposition is very rooted in noir, and that was done purposefully.
Is there going to be a little bit of Pam Grier characteristics within Jade?
I think there could be. It probably wouldn't be for her per se, but I could see that for other characters. The most interesting thing that happened here was that I wanted to do a solo story, and what happened was, as other characters were introduced, the characters became so interesting that it was like, hey, people like this. So I have this group that I call Twisted Union. So there are a couple of bad guys, but not bad guys. They're really good guys, but they're bad guys. So and they're part of this heroes group. So people really love that. I have another character that we call Wayne now. He wears all white. He wears this half crying, half smile kind of sadistic white mask, type thing. So that's a character that people love the design for. So they were like, hey, man, we want to see more of that. So as a writer, I've discovered that I don't care how many ideas you have to listen to audience feedback if you want them to continue to engage. So if they tell you something, if they say, we like this character, don't wave them away and say, okay, that's cool, but look at this other thing I want to do. You have to look into it and say, okay, so if you like Twisted Union, or if you like Wayne, or if you like these other characters, then, let's explore these stories as well, because, they tell you what they want, and it's a good idea to listen, at least sometimes.
But that kind of alters your thought process ahead to the next story. Because what if you have a certain character die in the next issue? Like, how do you go about changing that trajectory of that character dying in the next issue now? Now that people think that this person's like, wow, this person's pretty cool.
Right. That is the advantage of doing the trade paperback and having such an extended amount of time between stories. So like if, for example, Jade 2 came out in April, and Jade 3 won't come out until the beginning of 2026. So I have ideas where I want to go, but I also am able to take feedback from how people reacted and say, oh, okay, so I can, maybe change some things. I'm not going to change where I want the story to go, but I am willing to listen. And that is so having that much time allows me to take that feedback into one of the biggest feedbacks that I took from the first one to the second was that people wanted more action. They wanted a little bit less exposition. So I was like, okay, you want less exposition? You want more action? Got you. So I was able to take that in and put that in and still have enough story. Like there's significantly less exposition here. There's enough story to carry forward, but Jade 2 is unquestionably a visual feast. Like I just wanted people to, like, it is all about aesthetics. It is fun. It is visually striking to take in, but it does enough to move the story forward to set up a third story where we can really bring it home. But I just had fun with it. I just wanted to create something that was just a visual feast, and that's what the second book is.
At the end of the day, you're the Stan Lee of this universe. You can create and do whatever you need to do with it. So even if people are unhappy with your decisions, it's still your story.
Let me ask you a question that kind of goes along with what you just said. You always start with the writing first, then you draw the next. You draw after you write. Is there ever a point in your time drawing Jade that the writing couldn't go to the drawing, that that what you wrote you couldn't draw. So what did you do? Did you just take that out, or did you go from there?
Okay, so that happened more times than I can count because, again, my imagination can go anywhere. And sometimes, when you're drawing, you realize like, oh man, that's too much. So I would have to ask myself a question and say, how important is this to the story? If I take this out, does it change things? Does it affect the story? Or is there another way for me to display this? And sometimes I got really lazy and just said, I'm going to put a page of text right here. There's a lot of exposition. I'm like, look, I can't draw this. Just read this part, and then I'll get back to some more art on the next page. Man.
I like that. I'm
indie, man. This is on my second book. I'm growing. I'm learning.
Luther, do you put any input into the Jade storyline as well?
No, just.
But he can. and I'm open to ideas. So actually, when I'm collaborating with other people, sometimes folks will give me ideas, or some of the characters are actually based on real life people. So two of the characters, so you see on the Jade cover, Jade 2 cover, I created a contest, and I wanted to have people who wanted to be in the book, like, tell me why you want to be in the book, or, have people vote. So the two characters on the far left are actually real people who are contest winners that I created characters to put in the book in their likeness. And that's how we ended up getting Twisted Union. So, and the characters' names are Phoenix and Arson. And people love Phoenix and Arson, and I love Phoenix and Arson. So it's a good chance that there may be at least a solo one shot for Twisted
Cool.
Twisted Union. So they are dope, and we
both fire related.
Yeah. There's a lot of a lot of imagery related to the Phoenix, the death, the blaze, the rebirth of the Phoenix and that process. And this trilogy, tells the story because it's like, first one is called Risen from Ashes. The second one is Born of Flames. And the third book is, I'm going to go ahead and say it for the first time. It's the first time I've said it out loud. The third book is called Blaze of Hope. Jade, Blaze of Hope is volume 3. So that is the name. So that is, that will be the conclusion. You heard it here first, baby. That is a Seamless Villains exclusive.
Breaking news.
That's it. That's the first time I've said it out loud. Like, I've known for a while, but now they can get excited.
Oh, sorry. There's just too much going on. I can do that all day. Michael. But would you rather write the story than outsource the illustrations? Because I've known many independent writers as like yourself, and they kind of outsource that to other artists. That way, it frees up their creativity, having them write more to the story than just having to illustrate. So, in some stories, for me, that is the case. I have a lot of story ideas that I have in my head that I want to get out, but I don't really want to interfere with Jade per se. And those ideas and concepts, I really want other people to draw or other people to kind of take on. As far as with Jade, that's my baby. I love drawing Jade. I love drawing. There are times where I turn my writer brain off and I just draw concepts, and I just will sit there and draw and just come up with aesthetics. And then sometimes that can actually make me go back and change something I wrote in the story because I'm like, oh, what if we did this? Or I come up with a look or an idea, because one of the things that created was born in the art but affected the story was the brown jacket that she wears. And that was actually something where I was like, in book 3, I want to touch on that. Like, why does she always wear this brown jacket? Where did it come from? And what is the significance? And then I came up with an idea, and I was like, that's genius. That's really going to be able to bring the story full circle. And it was just an aesthetic choice at first, but I was like, oh, we can go somewhere with this.
There you go. Very cool.
Maybe tragedy or just something like for remember a certain person, event, whatever it is.
So something
brown jacket.
Yeah, so it's like it was a gift or something that's passed down, but when we find out the true origins of it or where it actually came from, then we get a little deeper, and it becomes more than just a jacket or a piece of clothing. It becomes something that is connected.
I noticed Jade is not typical comic book woman with big boobs and all that. Was that an aesthetic choice?
Mike likes big boobs, that's why.
I like big boobs, and I won't lie. But,
hey, man.
Was that an aesthetic choice of yours to not have her a large-chested woman?
So, yes, because she is, the one thing that I found that I could do is she is curvy, but, she wears a lot of jackets and things like that. So we can't really tell that. And there will be some times where we kind of get to see her in a more feminine light. But I am not a fan of over-sexualized characters. I feel like there can be a place for that. But, I like people that just get to action and get to work. I don't need to over-sexualize a character all the time. I feel like
that could be left to the swimsuit edition of X-Men. That's
So
Next.
I just feel like, I didn't want to do that because I feel like that's been done so much, and I was like, that can be kind of creepy. But I do feel like that. Feminizing the character or, seeing her in the light as an actual woman is something that, we got to earn that. We're going to earn it. We're not you're not going to get that up front. So,
that's why I had asked, like, how old is she as far as like her age? Like, I'm glad. That age range. That way,
so
you decide
you bring your Southern gentleman
provocative. Was that Mike?
I said he brought his Southern gentleman to Jade.
Yeah, because you don't want to draw a young teenager in a provocative way, like J. Scott Campbell did with Gen 13.
Well, absolutely, Gen 13. I was going to don't think that character up.
Yeah, you
definitely.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
In the 90s, but I don't think that kind of applies now.
Well, here's the thing about really good story. First of all, if we have a character who is exploring who she is, and we get to the sensual side of a woman's nature, and she's discovering these things for the first time that she's not known. Stuff as simple as painting her nails. She's an assassin. She kills for, that was who she was and what she did. So there was no need for that. So when she discovers it for the first time, it's this whole thing. So we can actually have a story related, element that says, okay, there's a reason why she's doing this, or when she puts on a dress for the first time, or that kind of stuff, it means something. It's not just us giving eye candy just for the sake of eye candy, because why? Let's not treat our audience like they're dummies. Like these are intelligent people who want to consume dope art, and this art is for everybody.
Yeah, we don't even look at Playboys that's animated. That's for our old '90s selves. That was that era.
Hey man, 15-year-old boy. 15-year-old boys want to read comic books more than
I don't think 13-year-old boys now read comics. All right.
And I think that we we have a much more diverse and much older audience, and also too, like Jade is heavily consumed by a female audience as much as just the male and female audience is split almost even. So whereas some characters are predominantly male or predominantly female, so my demographic is actually pretty diverse. So I take that into account when I think about how I'm going to display this character. It has to be cool enough for the guys to like, but it also has to be intriguing enough for the ladies in the audience to say, she's cool, or I want to be like that, or I want to cosplay this character.
Yeah, this is your Michonne right here.
For sure. I love Michonne, so yeah, that's one of my absolute favorite Walking Dead characters.
Do you guys remember the one cover from J. Scott Campbell? It was an Ironheart cover, and there was so much controversy because J. Scott Campbell painted her in a sexual light.
Yeah, because she's like, what, 15?
Yeah.
Something like that. I think she was at the time. So, yeah, and I try to stay away from that because being an indie creator. Like a lot of people are being introduced to this for the first time, and I'm not interested. Like maybe in the future I can, take some more liberties, but I think as I'm introducing the character, I don't want to go down that road, because then once you become stigmatized, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, buddy.
Yeah.
So nah.
Okay, we're almost out of time here. So where can people buy your book, and where can people find you on the social media? That way they can get to know you better.
Yes. So you can buy the book in one of two places. So my website is the iocollective.wordpress.com, and there you will be able to click on the Jade link. The book is available there. If you are on Amazon and you have Amazon Prime, my books are there as well. So there's Jade Risen of Ashes, there is Jade Born of Flames, and I have a few coloring books there. So there's Jade coloring book, and I have another coloring book series I did called Freedom Resistance. That is there as well. But if you want to connect with,
you're in trade and digital copies, correct?
Yes. So, and you can find me on social. Facebook is just Stallone Frazier. On Instagram, it's Stallone.Frazier. And if you're on Twitter, or now called X, it's the IO Collective. And you can see me there. Come say hello. I love to nerd out and talk about not just my character, but any and all characters, about what I'm reading, what I'm watching,
So what does IO and IO Collective stand for?
Okay, so IO is Illustrated Odyssey. So it's just basically, I just wanted to talk about visual storytelling. So, and those two things came to mind for the idea of visual storytelling. And the IOC has a kind of a second meaning as well, because it's in our culture. So the IO Collective kind of has a dual meaning. So it is a chance for us as traditionally marginalized storytellers to say, hey, we have this thing that we think you guys will like, and this is coming from a part of us.
Did I spell your last name right? Frazier with a Z?
Yes, with a Z. And thank you for that, because people misspell my last name so often that you would not believe how many different ways I've seen it spelled. So thank you for that. Stallone.Frazier on IG.
I can find you easily here. And looking at the 3 books on the screen, there are no variant covers, but you do have book 1, book 2, and then you have the platinum combo, which is
that is book 1, book 2, and the coloring book. So if you want to get 1, 2, 3, you can get that platinum combo, and variant covers will be coming soon. I do have some artwork. I have posters and things like that. So there will be some variant covers, but I decided to kind of let this one kind of sizzle, kind of be out there a little bit before I change the covers up.
Let it bring in the fishes. Let everybody come to it and have your the variant.
Yeah, because this one, actually, the current version of book 1 is a variant cover. That is not the original version of the first book. So the original version is no longer available. So if you didn't get it, you can't get it. You can only get the deluxe edition.
Guys, no more first
so if you didn't get that first run, you can't get it now. Sorry. So you can get that deluxe edition, which is awesome.
Ordered, will they come signed by you?
So if you get it through the website, you will get it signed. If you get it from Amazon, you'll get that 2 days shipping, but you're not going to get it signed by me. So get it directly from me through the website, and I will sign it personally to you. And I appreciate each and every order. The book has been selling fantastically, and it's because of people who have supported me, like you guys, like Luther, like it's so many people other than just me who have taken a chance on this indie idea, because it's hard to get people to buy into something they've never heard of before. And I appreciate the love and the support, and even the criticisms. I'm like, hey man, you thought enough to criticize? That's cool too. Thanks.
And the art is...
You're not doing it right if you don't have any haters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Hey, I love it. Hate it too. I appreciate it. I really do.
All right, so everybody go to IO Collective, WordPress.com to buy your books. And, check it out. Read Stallone stories with Jade.
Thank you.
Mike, got anything else?
I just want to say I'm impressed because there's not that many Afrocentric books out for people to consume, and for you to
Right.
put this out for people to consume is something special. And I say you should be proud of yourself. I'm
Thank
proud
you.
of you, and just knowing you for 30 minutes or 45 minutes now, and what you did is what you do is and what you did is fabulous. It's something to be commended.
Well, I appreciate it, and I just want to say this, and I can say this boldly that, I'm opening the door for some people who are going to come after me who are going to be excellent. Like there's a paradigm shift that's happening, and I think that people are hungry for new stories. We love our classics, we do, but I think that we are ready for some new things, and this is the beginning of some really awesome stories that people are going to be introduced to. So this is just the beginning for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see you work with Sebastian Jones as well, and maybe even run the
Hey, let's make it happen.
Oh yeah.
Right here, right now. Let's put it out there. Let's manifest that thing, man. We can make something happen for sure.
And will you be at any conventions anytime soon this year?
Okay, so I don't have any conventions coming up just yet. I probably will in the fall, but right now my favorite thing to do is just kind of do pop-ups. So, I'll kind of pick a time and a place and just kind of pop up because some of the cons are getting a little pricey, so sometimes they don't always give us artists the best treatment. So there are some that do, and shout out to the ones that really treat us well. But, as an indie creator, I've realized that sometimes I can kind of do it myself. So, and that's what I'm going to continue doing. So,
yeah.
So hopefully you'll find Stallone your nearest comic book shop as a pop-up.
Yes.
Right.
So there are some stores that I do work with. So Winston, Salem, Greensboro, NC, High Point, and we're going to expand out of there. So I want to go outside of just the state of NC. So I want to go on tour. I want to take this thing nationwide and hopefully one day international. So
There we go.
catch me soon.
Dream of the stars and reach for them.
Yes, every single one. So this is a process, and I've enjoyed every single moment. This is the biggest blessing. I get to be a nerd and get to do it for a living, man. This is awesome.
I think this is way better than the football career. Sure.
I think so too. Like I loved football. It had its time, but this right here, there's no shelf life. I can do this until, how old was Stan Lee when he passed? At least till then, right?
Yeah.
At least till then, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Definitely, bud. All right. Luther, where can everybody find you?
All right, everybody can find me at Ordinarily Ordinary Comics on Facebook and Instagram, along with TikTok.
And you're still doing sales weekly?
Sporadically, but I always give updates when I'm going to be doing a sale. And I got some new books just recently, so there'll be some new books coming up for sale.
Nice.
One book you won't see in Luther sales is Jade, because they're gonna be out the door.
Hey, you never know.
Mike, where can they find you?
Well, I'm back on social media after my short hiatus.
Yeah, you did get Zuckerberg there.
I got Zuckerberg. I got the real Evil Fett cosplay on IG and Facebook, and just Evil Fett cosplay on TikTok. And of course, I'm not on X because I don't like to be on there. But on Blue Sky on Evil Fett.
Well, I'm only on
love
X
Blue
for the
Sky.
boobs. I'm only on X for the boobs, but you can find me on my OF Only Feet. And
hey man,
and then here every Saturday
Spicy.
with you guys here. Yes, I do have spicy photos on my feet. So thank you guys for
That's
showing
right.
up.
Absolutely.
You watch the video. Let me know what I'll put the contacts for Stallone and the book and the links up on our socials.
Nice to meet you, Stallone. I just want
We'll
to
see you again.
Thank you so much, guys.
Saturday.
Appreciate it, man. Love you guys. Support you guys, man. Thanks.
Stallone, Luther, thank you for coming by, man. Appreciate you guys.
See ya.
Peace and cosplay.
Have a good night, everybody.
Appreciate it. All right.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Sealess Villains podcast. Your cultivator